ESBR Boxing. We are back, myself and Thomas, and we are here offering, I suppose, further reaction to the super fight that took place over the weekend, Katie Taylor versus Amanda Serrano, which Katie Taylor won via UD. I suppose fairly contentiously, and it is the reason we're of that contention that we, Thomas and I, are going to sort of unpick it here today and ask really what we think about it. But Thomas, first of all, thank you very much for joining me, and let's get straight into it. So I suppose obviously the scorecards were read out. Obviously, 95-94, 95-94, 95-94, but obviously Taylor also had a point deducted for leading with the head. Some people have said that Amanda Serrano won the fight. Some people have said they would have seen a draw. Some people have said that they think Katie Taylor edged it. Where were you sitting on it, Thomas? First and foremost, did you score it to Taylor or did you score it to Serrano? How did you see the fight play out?
You know, uh, I would say robbery, robbery is a strong word, but yes, I did see Serrano winning that, and that definitely seemed like a questionable decision to me, and I thought it was curious how like all three judges had, Taylor winning. I get that it's just by 1 point, but it's like, man, I can't believe that at least not one of those judges had it for Serrano. Um, but there were some close rounds in there, and I think those rounds were really critical for Katie Taylor on the scorecards. But like if you ask me, I just feel um, like I see it I see it kind of like 6 rounds to 4 for Serrano, like 95-94 towards her. Um, I just feel like in the rounds that she won, first of all, I thought she won them more clear, in my opinion. And also, I thought that her punches just had a bit more of an impact. Um, I, I definitely saw more of a reaction from Taylor when Taylor was getting hit versus the other way around. Although Serrano was getting hit a lot, especially in the last half of the fight. So yeah, I think that uh that late half rally from Taylor definitely pulled the fight out for her. But what do you think, man?
Man, you picked up on some really good points, and I was actually, I was wondering halfway through that whether you were reading my mind, because certain things I was saying, you were sort of saying, I was going, this is quite eerily uncanny. But I think first off, the thing you mentioned about the judges, no difference across the judges. To me, that is, I'm not saying, I'm not saying it's necessarily coordinated in a sort of blatant robbery in that way, but it just seems really surprising that not one of them. If it was a split decision to Katie Taylor, you go, okay, that's one thing, but all of them to have the scores like that was surprising to me, especially when Katie Taylor also had the point deducted. So you're also kind of saying, you've really had a winning that kind of 6-4. I just to be honest with you, I can't make an argument for winning it 6-4. I really had Serrano, like the first half of the fight you mentioned about Serrano winning her rounds more convincingly. I totally agree with that. I think she won all, like I think had a 4-1 halfway up, and after the cut happened, obviously she took a couple of rounds. Kayla came into it, and I think Serrano, whether she was rattled or not, or whether Katie Taylor just seemed to gauge the distance a bit better and catch her coming in. But those rounds are a lot closer. They weren't necessarily clear Katie Taylor rounds in the way that Serrano rounds were clear. And also thought the last couple, round 10 especially, I think Taylor was knackered, did the sort of windmilling when Serrano came in, but didn't actually catch her, and then just sort of launched herself into an embrace and still got caught. So I think that's a clear Serrano round as well. Maybe 9 was quite close as well. So for me, I actually scored it 6-4 Serrano, just without even taking into account the headbutt. So when you take obviously the point off as well, I think it was a fairly clear Serrano win for me. Um, I think you look at, I mean, obviously, there's difference in punching power, but you look at you look at Katie Taylor at the end, was obviously clearly caught quite a few times, really sort of marked up, really sort of swollen. Serrano was obviously around the eye, but that's where she got the headbutt. So I think you look at the stats of the fight as well. Serrano was really kind of dominant through a lot of those rounds, and I just feel like for me, yeah, like you say, robbery's strong, really sort of strong. It was still a close fight, but it wasn't the outcome. I could maybe make a case for a draw, but then obviously with the point off, you go Serrano by a point. I just can't make any case for Katie Taylor having won that clearly. I just don't see that at all. So for me, it was a really really poor decision. Not as disgusting maybe as some, but it did leave a sour taste in the mouth, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And it honestly, what's surprising about the decision to me is I thought that, like if there was going to be a questionable decision, or if it was going to lean towards a certain fighter, it would lean towards Serrano.
Yeah, yeah,
Especially after that point deduction happened, I was like, oh wow, okay.
yeah, yeah.
Um, you
In
know,
the States as well, like on the MVP promotions, whatever you think, oh, maybe if it's a close fight, it's
exactly.
going to go Serrano. So I was shocked as well. I was just expecting, to be honest with you, because I am. I have a young daughter at the time. At the time, I've still got a young daughter, but I was kind of in the midst of like feeding her at this point. So I had the audio on really low. So when it came to the results, I was just obviously waiting. I was expecting to see Serrano just jump in the air and celebrate. And then when it went the other way, I was like, "What the hell is going on here?" I was really surprised to see it go that way. But let's talk a little bit, I suppose, about what you think next. And I mean, look, Katie Taylor's won twice now, beaten well. I say won twice. The record books will say that she's beaten Amanda Serrano twice now, split decision and unanimous decision. Obviously, yeah, by lightweight and at super lightweight. Do you think, having seen what we've seen there the other day, do you think there's any real desire from you to see a rematch? Do you think there'll be a rematch, or do you think they'll both move on to different things?
Yeah, I think a rematch is unlikely. Um, I would still watch it. Like the fight was still great. And honestly, I felt like it was just as good as the first one. You know, it's as far as entertainment value goes. Um, but yeah, it's when a fighter wins, you know, the first two fights, even if it is controversial, it's a lot harder to generate interest for that third one. Either way, so yeah, I don't think that I don't think they'll run that one back, or certainly not immediately. And as far as where each fighter goes, Katie Taylor, I feel like she's done so much in the sport already. I kind of feel like she should maybe just hang it up and just call it and end on a high note. And for Serrano, I would like to see her maybe fight Alicia Bumgarner at like 130. She seems to have no problem, Serrano, like jumping back and forth from these different weight classes and skipping over weight classes and whatnot. So I don't think it will be a problem for her to acclimate to that weight class, and I think that would be a big fight.
Now, you know what? I was halfway through that wondering, fucking hell, Thomas, you're actually in my mind. I don't know whether there's some sort of telepathy going on here, but I think, especially with the Katie Taylor, I think you've gone out at a high. I think there were signs in the fight against Serrano that you're not necessarily the fighter you once were. Still, obviously brilliant, but I think like obviously the age and a lot of miles on the clock are starting to sort of show a little bit with Katie Taylor. To be perfectly honest with you, I think you've had another very very another very very good marquee victory. So maybe it might be time just to go out on a high. And I actually agree with you. Not like not sort of calling for retirement because I think she's atrophied to such a degree. But I just feel like you've achieved everything you need to achieve essentially, and that'll be a sort of good time and a way to step back, whether she will or not. I know other people necessarily want to see her go up and maybe fight Bumgardner herself, and maybe go up to sort of welterweight and do it that. Maybe she could, but I think Serrano, I totally agree with you as well. Carry on fighting. Don't want to go out obviously on a on a loss like that. Still obviously has a lot. You could tell that in the fight as well. Still very heavy handed as well. So yeah, I'd like to see them both. I'd like to see her continue. I think maybe Katie Taylor to sort of consider options. And I suppose it would have to. The thing with Katie Taylor, you think like it's going to have to be. It's going to have to be a super fight. If you come into a fight, you're going to be fighting for a title essentially, aren't you? So maybe it's going to be hard to sort of walk away from that. But I do personally think that maybe it should be time for her to walk away with a head held high, and obviously all the plaudits for everything she's done for female boxing. But Thomas, that is unfortunately we've got time for in this video. Thank you very much for joining me, guys. Let us know what you think in the comments. Whether you think that Taylor should retire, whether you think who you think Serrano should face next, whether you think the fight was close, whether you had it for Serrano, whether you had it for Taylor. Let us know. Like and subscribe. Obviously to the channel as well, because all your boxing needs under one roof. Thomas, I'll say it one more time. Thank you very much for joining me, and guys, as always, thank you very much for watching.